Anusha Sonia, top focus continues to be the white paper. The white paper that will dispel the notion that the NDA government or the BJP government hasn't worked on real economy. In fact, the Prime Minister spoke about it. The Finance Minister highlighted the importance of it. This 59-page document highlights what are the economic achievements of this government, how big our capital expenditure is, have we really built infrastructure in this country, has the wholesale price index really come under control, is the food inflation really under control, have we got more foreign investment in a developing economy in a country like India. Interestingly, some of these questions have been consistently asked by opposition parties. They argue that the government has not performed well on the real metrics of economy and how the country ought to function. Well, this is the white paper of the Indian economy. Let's go through this document and have a look of how exactly the government talks about the economy. Last 10 years of the NDA versus the last 10 years of the UPA. That's what is the comparison which is being drawn here. That's an overview. That's the first speech that you're looking at. The economy was in a fragile state in 2014. Public finances were in a bad shape. There was an economic mismanagement and financial indiscipline, and there was widespread corruption. There was a crisis-like situation. That is what was being pointed out. Let me try and see if I can flip through this paper and go to other parts and portions of it also. All right, we'll try and get more details on this. But the objectives of the white paper, as it lays down, it informs the honourable members of the parliament and the public about the policies and measures that the government took to restore the health of the economy and vigorous and capable of fulfilling the growth aspiration of the people in the present Amrit Kal. One of the key things that the Prime Minister also had highlighted in his address in Rajya Sabha specifically was the fact that we have dealt with a crisis that comes once in 100 years, the COVID, the pandemic that had hit the country. And despite that, when the Western economies faltered, it was India that was steady and continues to be on a steady path. Payal, my colleague, is with us on the broadcast. Payal, I believe it's a lengthy document. Could you take us through some important portions of it, please?
Well, it's a very, very lengthy and a very, very detailed document that the government has essentially put out. But what it highlights is that the condition of the economy was in the fragile five. That is something which was witnessed during the UP regime. It smacked of all kind of corruption and all kind of scams riddled with the government. That's something which the government has highlighted in this white paper. It also talks about the fact that there was lack of measures to control inflation. It also talks about the fact that there was no confidence in the foreign investors to actually come and invest in India given the state of the economy. So obviously it's a detailed document. It's very difficult to read the document within minutes of it being laid on the floor of the House in the Lok Sabha. We'll have to just go through more details. But essentially it says that this was a state of policy paralysis. There was no way forward. There was no attempt by the government. There was no political will by the government to actually uplift people from the clutches of poverty to make lives better. The ease of living was something which was completely in its worst form. And obviously that's the reason the government has also said, and like you were pointing out, the Prime Minister said in his address in the Lok Sabha and in the Rajya Sabha that, India has overcome the worst crisis of a century, and that is pandemic. And of course, that's COVID. And after that, also the Indian economy has not taken a huge hit. In fact, India is well on course to become the world's third largest economy once Narendra Modi comes back to power in 2024 after the Lok Sabha elections. So obviously, that's something which the government has highlighted. And remember, it's a huge political issue given the fact that the opposition parties have questioned the government's intent on working out for jobs, for people working on controlling the inflation. But here it is, the government is showing the mirror to the UPA, saying that you have no business to lecture us on these things because we've won election after election on the basis of the work that we've really done. And there's been not a single taint of scam against the government or against the Prime Minister himself, unlike what Dr. Manmohan Singh dealt with during the UPA regime.
Parts and portions of the paper that we are putting out for you on your screen right now, viewers. Pal, as I go through this document one by one, as I read through the pages, banking crisis of 2014 is something that the government is talking about. The finance minister had already hinted that whether it was the insurance or the banking sector, there were challenges on multiple fronts. And this paper highlights that the public sector banks were only about 6.6 lakh crore in March 2004. In 2012, it was about 39 lakh crore rupees, and the problem of loans was recognized. That was something, a huge issue that the government was facing at that point in time. Pallavi is with us on the broadcast, and she's also getting us some interesting portions of this white paper that has been presented right now. Pallavi, could you take us through the relevant portions, please?
I'm just going to add on to what essentially Payal has been saying, and she's absolutely right. It's a very, very lengthy document which runs into more than 59 pages actually, and it gives a list and a blow-by-blow account. But the two main crux which really stands out for me today, of course, is that of policy paralysis. And remember, in 2014, the narrative which was pushed by the Prime Minister was of Dr. Manmohan Singh being a weak Prime Minister, and so much was he consumed by the tugs and pressures of the coalition government that he was not able to ensure a smooth, effective governance. But more than that, and we are putting out those numbers and pictures up also, I'm sure, Nusha, you must be going through it and also running it, where he talks about where he talks about corruption. And there's a list of all the scams under the Dr. Manmohan Singh government, which is put out in a white paper very quickly, the Antrix-Devas deal. Now, this is significant because it comes under the Ministry of Space. That was at that point of time under the charge and responsibility of Dr. Manmohan Singh as a Prime Minister. The coal scam, again under that, for a brief period, he was a minister also in charge, because I remember Shibu Soren and one of the ministers had to step down. That was also something in which had tainted him. He talks about the Sharada chit fund case. He talks about the 2G scam. All of that is expectedly detailed mention is being made as far as the pervasive corruption. The title which goes in part 2 of page 27 talks about pervasive corruption and said that this is what my government tried to change. It talks about the Commonwealth scam, the 2G, the Sharada Tishwan, the INX media case, the Antrix Devas deal I just spoke about, the Cricket Association. I mean, there were several scams which it talks about, and the Augusta Westland helicopter which touched the Gandhi family, the other housing society scam again, the former Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Ashok Chavan, it's also touched him. And he talks about the fact that how when our government came to power, we have tried to ensure that one, justice is provided, and second, no, zero corruption, zero tolerance for corruption. The Prime Minister did say this, कि आप लोगों को जो बोलना है बोलिए, but those who have taken the money of the people, that money is going to be paid back and they will have to pay the price for it. And of course, we are putting up those graphics, I'm sure, Nusha, on the screens, which shows a growth story during the UPA times and how it stands in stark contrast to economic growth upward graph during the NDA times in the last 10 years.
Absolutely, absolutely. Joining us on the broadcast is also my colleague Parikshit Luthra. He is with us on the show. Parikshit, one aspect of this report, as Pallavi pointed out, pervasive corruption. The coal block allocation, the Commonwealth Games, the event of Commonwealth Games was marred by widespread corruption. This report goes on to note. It also talks about inflation. Now, inflation is one issue that not just the economists, the corridors of RBI or other fiscal institutions have been discussing, but this has been a topic widely discussed by the opposition parties as well. The government claims that even when it comes to the issue of inflation, the Modi government has outperformed.
Absolutely. This government has been speaking about a white paper for a few years now. In fact, it has gone on to say that we would have brought it in 2015 or 2016, but that would have shown India in very poor light. We've done that now because we've corrected the wrongs of the UPA era between 2004 and 2014. Now, we have been looking at different aspects of this white paper. It speaks about very high inflation, double-digit inflation during the UPA era. It speaks about a high fiscal deficit. It speaks about a banking crisis, a balance of payments crisis at that point in time. And over the last 10 years, this government, that is the finance minister, has also given a sense of the reforms that were carried out. She compared that to the UPA era when reforms that were needed at the state level, at the central level, were not really carried out. But when Prime Minister Modi came to power, there were reforms for women, there were reforms for business, reforms on the tax side, and all of that has led it to become much easier to do business in India. We speak about the export potential of India right now, the PLI schemes, which have attracted investments worldwide, and they have given a comparative chart. For example, if you speak about inflation, they have spoken about almost 8.2% inflation during the UPA era compared to 5% inflation right now. And on the whole, they have said that the capital expenditure in the budget has also been going up in a robust manner.
Exactly. Parikshit, on that point of capital expenditure, because capital expenditure actually denotes the amount of money government is pumping into the economy. This is to create assets, your roads, your railways, different institutions, and how you're augmenting the different kinds of infrastructure that exist in our country, including digital infrastructure, on which the Prime Minister has laid a lot of emphasis upon. Well, this simple, chart will explain to you. Let's have a look at these numbers. The capital expenditure as a percentage of the total expenditure in 2003-2004 was only about at 31%. So If your budget is of 100 rupees, your capex was about 31. That dipped. Now, this was also the year of the transition of the government. That's when UPA 1 came to power. In 2013-14, the capex, so for a budget of 100 rupees, you were only spending about 16%, 16 rupees, for example, for creating new assets of capital expenditure. That jumped in 2023-24 to about 28%. That's an aggregate that you're looking at of these years. And that significant jump that you've seen over the years is about creating new infrastructure. I want to once again cut across back to Pallavi, who's with us on the broadcast. Pallavi, a bit more about this particular document that has been presented and how it talks about a series of scams that unfolded during the UPA era and were perhaps the prime cause of the downfall in the economy that we saw in those years. At least that's what this white paper argues.
You know, I remember when 2004 the UPA came to power, that was also on the plank that India is not shining. India shining was a campaign of the predecessor of Dr. Manmohan Singh, which was the Atal Bihari Vajpayee Sarkar. And consistently from 2004, one of the main reasons why Dr. Manmohan Singh was also made the Prime Minister was the pitch which was then made by the UPA government is that we have to correct the economy. The economy is not shining and it's just a few people who are shining, and therefore it was a smoke screen which was created by the NDA or the Vajpayee Sarkar. Now look at what this white paper says. The white paper says actually that the government which came to power in 2004 did inherit a robust economy. The economy was actually thriving. But in the next 10 years, they made a complete, absolute mess of it. It was a question of lost opportunity. There was funds which were not being given to those sectors which were crying for those funds. The treasury was actually robust. It was healthy. But slowly by slowly, because of the corruption and the faulty policies and the myopic vision, the entire purpose of the government coming to power was completely defeated. Very quickly before I go across to you, because you were talking about capex, again the report talks about the poor policy planning and execution resulting in large unspent funds for many of the social sector schemes. Now this is important very quickly, Anusha, because that's what capital expenditure increase is all about. You use it for infrastructural developments, which is the hallmark which the government has mentioned in the vote on account. And the point that they are making over here is the capex was not being utilized by the UPA government.
All right, on that point of rural economies, how much government has actually done when it comes to the social welfare schemes, this is an interesting graph to really look at. Now, this report, the white paper claims that there was an underspending in about 14 major social and rural ministries. If you look at this particular graph, this is actually indicative of the welfare schemes that were running across the country. Between 2004 and 14, BE means the budgeted expenses, 6.4% of the overall expenditure, and in 2014 to 2024, it's about 0.9%. That means the amount of money that was spent was much larger in these years compared to this. The number, the smaller the number here in this graph, the more the expenditure is. That's what these numbers really are about. Let me try and cut across to my colleague Aman Sharma as well. He's with us on the broadcast. Aman, of course, when it comes to this critical issue of social welfare schemes, the Prime Minister highlighted that whether you like it or not, we will give a nudge to all the people in this country who actually need it. Whether it's the Ujjwala Yojana or various other social schemes, the government says we know the intricate balance that we need to strike between development and giving these benefits to the poor and underdeveloped of the country.
But clearly, Anusha, see, the Prime Minister made that very clear on the floor of the House also, then because the criticism has been that if you have brought so many crores of people outside multi-dimensional property, why do you need to give them a free anaj to 80 crore people? The Prime Minister clearly saying that someone who's come out of the ICU needs still care. So we are trying to support these people. We don't want them to slip back into poverty. So that has been the larger, the message from the Prime Minister. If we speak of the white paper, I think significantly the way the government has drafted the white paper, the three parts of the white paper, I think very meticulous exercise. Part one, going into the part that what was actually the macroeconomic situation under the UPA government. Clearly, the government making a very strong point that when its government, the NDA government, Atal Bihari Vajpayee went out of power, the UPA government inherited a healthy economy. We were growing at 8%, and they make it a point that it was a healthy economy ready for more reforms. But the UPA government, the UPA leadership, which takes credit for the 1991 reforms, abandoned them after coming to power in 2004. I think very important point. They say that though they take pride that they brought the liberalized economy in 1991, when they came to power in 2004, they abandoned it. They frittered away the gains which was by the made by the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government. The part 2, I think, is very, very interesting, where they're giving a current status of the various corruption scams of the UPA government. Now, this is the corruption scams are the ones on the basis of which Mr. Narendra Modi came to power in 2014. The government really telling people that you can't forget about their corruption scams. Many of them are actually under trial right now. Be it the coal scam, be it the 2G scam, which is an affiliate code. It has listed out, in fact, over a dozen corruption scams under the UPA government, which are still under trial. And number 3, of course, is the government's picture that, how it has turned around the economy, be it on the various fronts, and especially I think also the section towards the end, Anusha, where
the lost opportunities, the
lost opportunities and the various schemes under which how the situation has changed, be it on tap water, be it on electrification, be it on houses. Government has given proper figures here. So I think it is a very, very effective, strong counter to what we saw earlier in the day, the black paper by the Congress, which looked more like, messaging by the Congress on broader terms. This is very, very specific with facts and figures, and I think that is what the government is trying to show.
I want to once again quickly cut across to Parikshit. Please continue to stay with us on the broadcast. Parikshit, as I go through this report, point number 43 on page 22 interestingly talks about the UPA government's economic and fiscal mismanagement had ultimately hollowed the growth potential of India by the end of its term. They go on to quote the IMF noted in 2013 that the growth slowdown is too big to be explained by fiscal consolidation and monetary tightening. So all these adverse comments of a nature by the IMF and various other international organizations are also a part of this report.
Right, and one thing that we have been seeing over the last few years, all our colleagues across the network have been giving us a sense of what this white paper really says in comparison to the UPA era. But what global companies, industry bodies are saying about India, they see India today as a market which has huge potential to consume. There is a lot of demand, and this is a country which is seen as an alternative to China. And this is a sentiment that the Indian government has been trying to focus on over the last 10 years. What has also worked in India's favor is continuity of government and stability of government. And even now, many companies, many businesses, industry bodies see that as a positive. Now, I would just like to focus on a few more points. For example, the number of startups. This was a priority during the UPA era as well. By the time they finished, according to this white paper, there were just about 350 startups in the country, and in the last 10 years, the number of startups has actually grown to over 1 lakh. This is one of the priority areas of the government. If we look at multi-dimensional poverty, very recently the Niti Aayog had come out with a paper on how poverty has gone down in the country and how the number of people have been uplifted. According to this paper, in 2014, after 10 years of the UPA era, 29% of the population was under poverty, and today that number has come down to about 11%. So they have given these comparisons. The poor, the farmers, the youth, the women, these have been the focus areas of the government. But some areas where the businesses, industry bodies have been questioning the government, and also the opposition has been questioning the government. One is on the issue of skilling, one is on the issue of employment, and also more reforms on the state level and standardization of reforms across the board. Possibly these are areas that the government will focus on in the next few months.
Absolutely. Interesting trends across the FDI as well, foreign direct investments. Pallavi, cutting across to you, the Prime Minister had highlighted that when it comes to the foreign direct investments, we have more money now flowing into the country compared to the UPA era. Page number 36 has the gross FDI inflows, which are gross inflows including the reinvested earnings, and it shows that there has been a consistent increase compared to the year 2005. So those numbers, as far as foreign direct investments and the foreign money inflow into the country is concerned, it shows that it has significantly increased in the last 10 years.
I'm just going to go back to an earlier speech of the Prime Minister. I think he went to America and he was approaching the Indian diaspora, and he asked the people that there was a time when you would travel, people would ask you which country are you coming from, and many people perhaps would not even know where India is, and also some of them looked down upon India as a country of snakes and elephants and so on and so forth, and all that has now changed. I'm trying to change things. The perception of India changing, I think that's the crux of this white paper also. I'm just going through a summary points which I'm sure you're going to put out, Anusha, but one thing which really stands out is when he's talking about corruption, how corruption actually degraded the image of India abroad. And he talks about Commonwealth Games. If you remember the Suresh Kalmadi era, Sheila Dikshit was the chief minister, and there were several scams at that point of time associated with the Commonwealth Games. And this is an international sport event, and the criticism which came in is that on an international sporting event, you brought disgrace to the country because of the corruption allegations and scams associated with it. In this white paper, they talk about the Commonwealth Games as degrading the image of the country in stark contrast to a G20 presidency where India's prestige arose. And thereby I come back to the point which you just raised. Atmanirbharta, yes, that's the focus and the pillar of this government. Get more and more self-reliant, cut down on your imports, increase your exports. But we also don't send out this message to the world that we are indulging in protectionism. Our economy is open for foreign investment, and why not? I mean, India is now considered to be a favorable destination in comparison to China. iPhone factories, the Tesla factories, they opening up in India. That's the Prime Minister's message and the government's message to the white paper, that India has become an attractive hub for the world, and how India's image has changed, and we are now moving towards $1 trillion economy.
A Viksit Bharat and an Atmanirbhar Bharat, the message coming in. Before I go back to my colleague Aman Sharma, this is an interesting table that I want our viewers to have a look at. Now, this is one thing which has been repeatedly said by this government. You've built houses, we've built houses, we've just done it four times, or what you could have done. Now, the affordable housing rural in 2003 to 14 was just about 2.1 crore. It jumped to 2.6 crore. There's a significant increase. The construction of toilets, look at the number of toilets that we've created in 2014 to 2024 compared to these just 3 years of 2011 to 14 is just about 1.8 to 11.5. Now, once again, between this period, now I'm looking at a consistent period, right? Let's have a look at rural electrification. This is a good comparison to look at. 2005 to 14, about 2.5 crore households. 2017 to 2022, once again, a span of roughly about 5 years, 2.86. That's higher. Jan Aushadhi stores, or the medical stores which are open, once again, a significant increase that we have seen from the earlier number of 164. So, maternity benefit, 9.9 to about 3.59 crore. I mean, from a lakh to crore, it's a huge jump of multiple times. This only points out to the social welfare schemes earlier that I was talking as well. Let me get across to my colleague Aman, who's with us on the broadcast. There is a reason why there is so much resonance of the Prime Minister, especially amongst the women voters. The direct benefit transfers, creation of household, affordable housing, Ujjwala scheme that the Prime Minister has repeatedly spoken about. All these schemes are the hallmark of how the government is reaching out to women as a vote bank.
Well, Anusha, these are the schemes which the government is pointing out. In fact, are similar schemes.
Sure.
So the UPA was also running similar schemes. It was running affordable housing scheme. It was running a toilet scheme before the Modi government came to power. So they are saying the similar key programs which had similar objectives. The the NDA government has outdone even the UPA government. They are comparing the 10-year period with schemes launched in 2016, 2015. Especially if you see the electrification target that you were saying, 2.15 crore households electrified in 10 years of UPA. But in 5 years you had 2.86 crores, and half the time more crore households have been electrified. Be it construction of toilets, which has been a major achievement of this government. Just less than 2 crore toilets in almost 3 years of the scheme being launched by UPA, but in 10 years you've seen 11.5 crore. In fact, if you go in the annexures, Anusha, the annexures that the government has put in the end, I don't know if you can scroll to that, the annexures, in fact, specify in great detail the entire picture which has changed ahead as well.
Right. So I believe there are more annexures and attachments.
There is the annex,
this one, right?
Oops.
So we'll try and just put that into perspective. Yes, right, it's here.
So there is the last annexure. In fact, the government has gone and put a complete picture.
Even this
of
is
the
an
economy.
interesting number to look at. Like, look at the inflation, what the IMF had actually said, the GDP, the capital expenditure. We'll continue breaking down all the numbers, as my colleague just pointed out to you, whether it's the inflation, whether it's the rural schemes, and much more. The government argues through this white paper that they have done their job. My colleagues continue to stay with us on the broadcast. For now, we are stepping into
Friends. Everything will be scrutinized to the minutest detail, and that's when, well, indeed, when it's happening in India, the expectations get even, larger. But let me move on and ask you this: while India is hosting this, what is the meaning of India for you? If you had to describe India in one word, for the world to see at the moment, because India is having such a true moment world over, and this competition being held here and being hosted here is just another feather in that hat, right? If you had to define India in one word to the rest of the world, to those 120 contestants that are coming from across the globe, what would you say?
Well, when it comes to India, I feel that growth is something that comes to my mind. I believe that India is a potluck of culture. Like I mentioned, with every step that we take, in every 2 kilometers, we feel that India has a new boundary, a new space altogether. We feel that we have entered a new nation altogether. We are all very rooted to our traditions, but at the same time, we are embarking on a new journey where we're seeing India on the global platform, being one of the biggest economies. We are advancing in technology. We are taking our recourse towards progressive march and perfection. Well, I feel that India has taken us to the greater level, and I cannot wait to represent that, show that to my fellow contestants, to the 120 delegates that are coming here to India, to show what India purely stands for: its hospitality, its growth, the new journey that we are embarking on. And I hope that everyone has a great time here.
Sini Shetty is Miss India right now. And as Miss India, as a 21-year-old, as a finance graduate, we obviously are very interested to know what she will be doing in the upcoming pageant. But why is the upcoming pageant so keenly watched out for? Because if those of you who don't know, Miss World is actually going to happen right here in the country this time. It's happening after 27 years. So thus a lot of pressure on what exactly comes out of this pageant. We are told it will happen in March in Mumbai. So we sat down with Sini and I asked her a couple of questions. The one thing I really wanted to understand from her was that since India is known for Atithi Devo Bhava, she will also be hosting the 120 other contestants. How would she describe India in one word? That and much more in this conversation. All right, it's time to amp up the glam quotient on the Breakfast Club, and our next guest will truly give you an insight of that, will be that person to take you through all things beauty, all things brains and all things the pride of India. Who am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about the Miss World pageant, which India is now going to be hosting in March of this year after a 27-year hiatus. That means the last time India actually hosted this pageant was 27 years ago, and now finally is the time. And of course, all eyes are on our India representative. On that note, let me welcome on TBC Sini Shetty. Hello and welcome. How are you doing this morning?
Hi everyone. Hi Sonal. I'm doing great. I'm super excited. Thank you so much for having me here.
Let me start by saying this for our viewers who don't know Sini. Let me just introduce you a little bit. She's 21-year-old. She obviously won the Miss World, the Miss India World title, and thus will be representing India in that pageant. She is a finance graduate from what I know and has temptations to pursue that further. She's also a Bharatnatyam dancer. So she wears lots of hats. So, Sini, for those of us watching right now, the first question that really comes to mind and I really want to understand is, what were you thinking when you applied for this pageant? What's gotten you to this stage? What's the inspiration?
Well, you know, just looking back at my journey, when I look at my days, I won in Miss India in the year 2022. And the same year, I've lived two different lives. A girl who was working in a corporate field, pursuing accountancy, dancing through her life, and suddenly when Miss India happened, her life changed. You know, I was happy in my life. I felt that I have achieved everything that I have had in my bucket list, that I've had in the year 2022.
That's quite nice.
But when I entered Miss India, when I understood a lot more about pageantry was love at first sight. I personally felt that there was more vision to my life, there was more purpose to my life, a lot more that I can do with my caliber, a lot more that I can do with my abilities.
All right, Sini, so clearly you are very accomplished, you've studied the right places, you've worked as well, but take me 1 second back to the moment you decided or you went to your parents and said, listen, hang on, this finance degree and everything else can wait, I need to go and enroll myself in the Miss India pageant. What was the conversation like at home?
Well, there was definitely worry. I still remember that there was definitely panic around my parents, where they were wondering and they were questioning. They were not wrong when they questioned me that why sudden switch, why do you feel that? They were just finding logic. I think I still remember one of my favorite memories. We were just sitting across and we had this simple conversation where I told them that this is the direction that I want to pursue. And I feel that this gives logic to my life, this gives vision to my life. And I definitely feel very positive about it. As much as I'm happy here and I promised that I would complete this, I am not someone who quits. I would pursue it. But this at the moment feels very strong. This goes with my vision, this aligns with my purpose.
Right.
And I would really want to do it.
And you were working at that point, no? You were already in a job.
Exactly. I was working in a marketing firm. It was a youth marketing organization which catered to around 40,000 students. Everything was well. But I just felt that there was more to me. I could have done a lot more. It is just fulfilling.
Purpose. You found purpose, and kudos to your parents.
I found purpose in life.
Yeah, kudos to your parents for listening into purpose. This is what we always say. Every child is different. Every child has a different passion. So you come from Karnataka, right? You also come from a community. We have had a former Miss World come from. Aishwarya Rai Bachchan comes from that. This is happening when India is hosting. So clearly, no pressure as we go into the contest this year.
Absolutely no pressure. I have a roller coaster of emotions. I am feeling excited. I'm also feeling content because all of them are coming here. I have so much to do. I have so much to show them. So there are a lot of feelings, but not nervousness at all.
So one of the key takeaways I want people to take from this interview is also to know how you guys handle the pressure on such a huge platform. Take us through what kind of training are you given?
Welcome back. You're watching The Nation at 5. We continue to track all the big stories and the centre versus the south states. That politics between the centre and the southern political parties, that continues to escalate. Yesterday we saw Mr. Siddaramaiah, the Karnataka Chief Minister, protesting here in national capital. And now we have Mr. Pinarayi Vijayan, the Kerala Chief Minister, who's joined the bandwagon. He continues to insist that the central government has not really been fair when it comes to the allocation of funds. They're talking about the funds and the collection. The GST devolution has not happened properly. Chief Minister Vijayan has blamed the centre for withholding grants, causing an about 8,000 crore deficit. There are other leaders as well, including Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal, Punjab Chief Minister Bhagwant Mann, and others who were present during this protest today. Let's listen into some reactions and voices on this story.
आप जब चीफ मिनिस्टर थे गुजरात के, आपने पूछा केंद्र सरकार उस वक्त के यूपीए गवर्नमेंट को कि 50% टैक्स स्टेट को मिलना चाहिए। फिर ये डिवाइड की बात हो गई नहीं। ये लोग अगर दूसरे पार्टी के लोग बात कर रहे हैं तो आपने तो खुद बोला चीफ मिनिस्टर होके, और वही बात अगर दूसरा बोलता है वो देशद्रोही होता है, वो देश तोड़ने की बात करता है। तुम क्या करें? तुम तो देश तोड़ने की बात हमेशा करते हैं।
Mr. Chenitala, the entire cabinet, the MLAs, MPs of the LDF is in Delhi right now having a protest at Jantar Mantar. Even now they are saying that we had invited the Congress and the UDF, but they are not being part of this protest for the states.
See that this is a gimmick. This is only for a political propaganda for the ensuing Lok Sabha elections. 7.5 years. The Chief Minister and the Prime Minister were bye-bye. They have not even said anything about the Chief Minister, Prime Minister or their policies. All of a sudden, because of the financial crisis in the state of Kerala, which is a product of the state government, now they are staging a dharna or a public meeting, nobody knows what is, in Jantar Mantar. See, the financial crisis in Kerala is because of the state government. Central neglect is one among the factors. The real factor is that the corruption, mismanagement, and non-collection of the revenue, these are the basic reasons for the financial crisis in the state of Kerala.
सुप्रीम कोर्ट की हेयरिंग अब अगले हफ्ते फिक्स हुई है और तुरंत केंद्र सरकार से फोन आ गया, आइए बैठ के बात करते हैं। तो हम छोटी छोटी बातों के लिए सुप्रीम कोर्ट जाएंगे क्या? ये क्या बदतमीजी है? आप अपना काम क्यों नहीं करते? हम हर चीज के लिए सुप्रीम कोर्ट के पास और भी तो बहुत काम है। सुप्रीम कोर्ट भरा हुआ है केसेस से, जनता के केसेस से। हम अपने फंड लेने के लिए भी, हमें फंड लेने के लिए जंतर मंतर पे आके बैठना पड़ेगा। 2 लाख करोड़ रुपए हम केंद्र सरकार को देते हैं दिल्ली के लोग मिलके इनकम टैक्स में, और उस 2 लाख करोड़ में से दिल्ली के लोगों को एक साल में 325 करोड़ रुपए मिलते हैं। इतना तो अंग्रेजों ने भी नहीं लूटा होगा।
हम देख रहे हैं कि लगातार जो खास तौर पे साउथ नॉर्थ डिवाइड कर रहे हैं ऑपोजिशन, कल कर्नाटक की जो सरकार थी वो जंतर मंतर पे थी, आज केरल की सरकार जंतर मंतर पर है, तो उस पर आप क्या कहेंगे जो नॉर्थ साउथ डिवाइड को लेकर बात हो रही है?
देखिए, कल प्रधानमंत्री जी ने अपने भाषण में भी कहा है, और कांग्रेस या विपक्ष के कई दल हैं जो कहीं ना कहीं शुरू से ही तुष्टीकरण की राजनीति करते हैं। जात के आधार पर, धर्म के आधार पर, क्षेत्र के आधार पर, भाषा के आधार पर आज कहीं ना कहीं प्रयास हो रहा है कि उत्तर और दक्षिण को कहीं ना कहीं लड़ाने का कार्य चल रहा है। जबकि अगर आप देखें, जब से मोदी जी इस देश के प्रधानमंत्री हुए हैं, फेडरल स्ट्रक्चर का विशेष ध्यान रखा गया। और एज ए वित्त मंत्री होने के नाते मैं कह रहा हूँ कि निश्चित तौर से जो भी हमारा टैक्स रेगुलेशन है, या जो भी जीएसटी का कंपलसेशन है, या जो भी चीज़ें भारत सरकार से स्टेट में जाती हैं, उसका एक फार्मूला, उस फार्मूले के तहत किसी के साथ कोई भेदभाव नहीं किया जाता है, और कहीं ना कहीं हम लोग एक सबके साथ एक जैसा व्यवहार करते हैं।
Let me try and cut across to my colleague Pallavi and get more details on this entire story. Pallavi, first, how this entire narrative is playing out. Yesterday it was Mr. Siddaramaiah, Pinarayi Vijayan, Arvind Kejriwal. Various, opposition rule states chief ministers have come forward with similar allegations.
Well, I mean, Anusha, again, I would see a method in this entire strategy coming in from the southern party, including that of the Congress party. The fact that the Karnataka leaders were over here yesterday, Kerala is over here, and all of this in some ways also going to be linked to the white paper which has been tabled a short while back in Lok Sabha as well as in Rajya Sabha. Anusha, it's very clear that like in 2014, the 2024 elections are going to be fought on a main plank of economy, the state of the economy, that India is actually shining now while it did not in the last 10 years. But coupled with this is the political strategy of the BJP. The BJP doesn't want to be seen only as a north-based party. It's also putting out statistics to show that how it has more than 20 Lok Sabha MPs from down south. It's making inroads into south, and development becomes a key mantra which the BJP will always want to use when it starts its journey in eyeing the southern seats as well. Now, I think most of these parties like the DMK in Kerala itself, the left, have got wind of this strategy of the BJP. So what are they going to do? What has always been a time-tested strategy of southern-based or south-based parties is to project parties of north as north-based parties which are anti-south, and they are trying to do an imposition of the northern culture and beliefs and language also on south. And that's why consistently taking this narrative, a stepmotherly treatment towards South India by a party which is primarily north-based, and thereby you have these kind of protests and accusations coming out against the BJP.
Absolutely. Pallavi, as you put all of that into perspective, of course, this is far from over. This is likely to be further pivoted as we inch closer to the big Lok Sabha elections. Some more reactions before we go into a very short break.
The issue is nothing but we are asking the central government our right or the money we had to get from central government, because you all know that ours is a federal state, federal government, and the democratic federalism is not like this. Democratic federalism should be based on strong states and strong center. We are asking the center to allow us for the sustainability of development. and we should get at least 50% of the money, and if they are not willing to do that, this 42% they should give to us.
अलग देश की मांग, ये संयोग या प्रयोग, ये कांग्रेस और कांग्रेस के गठबंधन दलों का एक के बाद दूसरा हमला भारत पर और भारत के टुकड़े करने पर, ये संयोग है या प्रयोग? देश को जवाब चाहिए। जब टुकड़े टुकड़े गैंग जेएनयू में थी तो राहुल गांधी उनका समर्थन करने गए। मैंने तब भी संसद में खड़े होकर कहा था, आखिर देश के कितने टुकड़े करना चाहते हैं राहुल गांधी और कांग्रेस पार्टी, और किस टुकड़े पर राज करना चाहती है कांग्रेस और राहुल गांधी? कभी दक्षिण भारत के एक मुख्यमंत्री के बेटे से ये बयान करवाती है सनातन धर्म को कुचलने की, खत्म करने की, जड़ से मिटाने की। कभी हिंदी के खिलाफ तो कभी हिंदू के खिलाफ इनके बयान आते हैं। ये संयोग है या प्रयोग है?
Employment opportunities for the youth.
News is meaningless till you unlock its core. At the core is the crux.
I think this is the reason behind it. It's most important.
Watch Crux of the Matter to stay informed with me, Rahul Shivshankar.
Brought to you by self, to compose yourself, to come out this confident person, and like you said, no pressure of carrying only 1 billion expectations on your shoulders.
Well, you know, the preparations have been on full swing. I have been preparing for Miss World for the last 2 years. There is a lot.
Oh yes,
that
because
goes
of the pageant, because of the pandemic, the contest couldn't take place.
Yes, so there has been a lot of delay, there has been a lot of patience, a lot of wait, but I feel that every wait, every experience has been a stepping stone for me. I feel that I've grown with a lot of exposure, a lot of experience, a lot of training has come to place when it comes to communication, when it comes to your walk, when it comes to your styling, when it comes to your personality. You meet so many people that helps you discover yourself. I believe in observing and learning. So I think the wait is worth it. Well, I do agree that, you know, pressure is something that mounts up, that can take a toll on your health, on your mental health. But I think there is one thing that I really believe in is passion and how you pursue it. I keep my passion really close to me, that is dance. And just breathing and understanding that everything is okay. You just have to do yourself best. You have to be true to yourself. You have to be your authentic self, and just be kind at heart and do your best. Everything will work out for you.
Oh, that's good advice.
Breathing is important.
Breathe in, just breathe in and breathe out. That can solve a lot of problems.
Breathe out.
Yeah. Yes. You know, you're just 21, and like I said, that's why the question came. But at such a young age, you have to do everything just right. Every move you make, how you walk, how you talk, everything will be scrutinized to the minutest detail. And that's when, well, indeed, when it's happening in India, the expectations get even, you know, larger. But let me move on and ask you this. While India is hosting this, what is the meaning of India for you? If you had to describe India in one word for the world to see at the moment, because India is having such a true moment world over, and this competition being held here and being hosted here is just another feather in that hat, right? If you had to define India in one word to the rest of the world, to those 120 contestants that are coming from across the globe, what would you say?
Well, when it comes to India, I feel that growth is something that comes to my mind. I believe that India is a potluck of culture. Like I mentioned, with every step that we take, in every 2 kilometers, we feel that India has a new boundary, a new space altogether. We feel that we have entered a new nation altogether. We are all very rooted to our traditions, but at the same time, we are embarking on a new journey where we're seeing India on the global platform, being one of the biggest economies, we are advancing in technology, we are taking our recourse towards progressive march and perfection. Well, I feel that India has taken us to the greater level, and I cannot wait to represent that, show that to to my fellow contestants, to the 120 delegates that are coming here to India, to show what India purely stands for, its hospitality, its growth, the new journey that we are embarking on, and I hope that everyone has a great time here.
Sini Shetty is Miss India right now. And as Miss India, as a 21-year-old, as a finance graduate, we obviously are very interested to know what she will be doing in the upcoming pageant. But why is the upcoming pageant so keenly watched out for? Because if those of you who don't know, Miss World is actually going to happen right here in the country this time. It's happening after 27 years. So thus a lot of pressure on what exactly comes out of this pageant. We are told it will happen in March in Mumbai. So we sat down with Sini and I asked her a couple of questions. The one thing I really wanted to understand from her was that since India is known for Atithi Devo Bhava, she will also be hosting the 120 other contestants. How would she describe India in one word? That and much more in this conversation. All right, it's time to amp up the glam quotient on the Breakfast Club, and our next guest will truly give you an insight of that, will be that person to take you through all things beauty, all things brains and all things the pride of India. Who am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about the Miss World pageant, which India is now going to be hosting in March of this year after a 27-year hiatus. That means the last time India actually hosted this pageant was 27 years ago, and now finally is the time. And of course, all eyes are on our India representative. On that note, let me welcome on TBC Sini Shetty. Hello and welcome. How are you doing this morning?
Hi everyone. Hi Sonal. I'm doing great. I'm super excited. Thank you so much for having me here.
Let me start by saying this for our viewers who don't know Sini. Let me just introduce you a little bit. She's 21-year-old. She obviously won the Miss World, the Miss India World title, and thus will be representing India in that pageant. She is a finance graduate from what I know and has temptations to pursue that further. She's also a Bharatnatyam dancer. So she wears lots of hats. So Sini, for those of us watching right now, the first question that really comes to mind and I really want to understand is, what were you thinking when you applied for this pageant? What's gotten you to this stage? What's the inspiration?
Well, you know, just looking back at my journey, when I look at my days, I won in Miss India in the year 2022. And the same year I've lived two different lives. A girl who was working in a corporate field, pursuing accountancy, dancing her way, dancing through her life, and suddenly when Miss India happened, her life changed. You know, I was happy in my life. I felt that I have achieved everything that I have had in my bucket list, that I've had in the year 2022.
That's quite nice.
But when I entered Miss India, when I understood a lot more about pageantry, pageantry was love at first sight. I personally felt that there was more vision to my life, there was more purpose to my life, a lot more that I can do with my caliber, a lot more that I can do with my abilities.
Alright Sini, so clearly you are very accomplished, you've studied the right places, you've worked as well, but take me 1 second back to the moment you decided or you went to your parents and said, listen, hang on, this finance degree and everything else can wait, I need to go and enroll myself in the Miss India pageant. What was the conversation like at home?
Well, there was definitely worry. I still remember that there was definitely panic around my parents, where they were wondering and they were questioning. They were not wrong when they questioned me that why sudden switch, why do you feel that?
Welcome back. You're watching The Nation at 5 and we continue to tell you more stories in the run-up to Lok Sabha elections of 2024. More importantly, this could seem to be more troubles for the India bloc. It seems like that the RLD leader, Jayant Chaudhary, once again is in talks with the BJP. Not just him, there are reports that the Shiromani Akali Dal may be once again considering to be a part of the NDA, be an ally with the BJP. They were earlier an ally, but they had broken off after the farmers' agitation. Interestingly, Chandrababu Naidu's TDP is also in talks. There are also meetings which are lined up there. With all these hectic negotiations in place, it looks like that the BJP wants to stitch up some pre-poll alliance before the Lok Sabha elections to increase its ambit, to increase its votes, and of course to fulfill the dream of 400 ke par. Let's have a listen in to some reactions. First, let's listen into what the Prime Minister said.
जिस कांग्रेस ने सत्ता के लालच में सरेआम लोकतंत्र का गला घोंट दिया था, जिस कांग्रेस ने दर्जनों बार लोकतांत्रिक तरीके से चुन करके आई सरकारों को रातों रात भंग कर दी थी, बर्खास्त कर दिया, जिस कांग्रेस ने देश की संविधान लोकतंत्र की मर्यादाओं को जेल के सलाखों के पीछे बंद कर दिया था, जिस कांग्रेस ने अखबारों पर ताले लगाने तक की कोशिश की, आवाज जो कांग्रेस देश को तोड़ने के नैरेटिव घटना का नया शौक उनको पैदा हुआ, इतना तोड़ा कम नहीं है, अब उत्तर दक्षिण को तोड़ने के लिए बयान दिए जा रहे हैं। और ये कांग्रेस हमें लोकतंत्र और फेडरलिज्म उस पर प्रवचन दे रही है।
All right, let's get more perspective from my colleague Aman Sharma, who's joining us on the broadcast. Aman, NDA, what kind of alliances can be staged? Say, for example, if Shiromani Akali Dal, they had walked out because of the farmers' agitation. They have been a long-term ally of the BJP. What does it look like for the Saffron Party?
Well, Anusha, what the BJP here is trying to do after the Prime Minister's very ambitious target of 370 seats for the BJP, 400 for the NDA, it is trying to bring its erstwhile partners who have left the NDA recently or long back into the fold. So first the TDP in Andhra Pradesh. Andhra Pradesh TDP was a long time ally of the BJP, but Chandrababu Naidu and BJP had a parting of ways. 2019 they contested separately. BJP did not win even a single seat in Andhra Pradesh. BJP is keen to get a foothold back in Andhra Pradesh, and that is the reason that BJP is speaking to Chandrababu Naidu. BJP wants to contest 6 to 7 seats in Andhra Pradesh. If the alliance works out, there is also Pawan Kalyan there who's in the picture, so it will be a larger alliance if that works out. Initial talks have been positive, that is what we have learnt. When it comes to UP, for example, RLD, again Ajit Singh and his son Jayant Chaudhary both contested in 2019 from their bastions of Muzaffarnagar and Bagpat, formed the Mahagathbandhan. When SP and BSP support, still they lost their seats. So RLD also knows that it is difficult to win in West UP against the BJP. That is why I think the RLD has opened a line of communication to the BJP. Talks are still on, and BJP is keen to get RLD on board. Amit Shah had even offered in 2022 that Jayant Chaudhary should come to the BJP side. Okay. Punjab is a very key state because Punjab is somewhere where BJP appears to be struggling. You know, they did win 2 Lok Sabha seats the last time in 2019, but that was when they had an alliance with the Akali Dal. Akalis also won 2 seats, so the NDA had won 4 seats in Punjab. This time it seemed both the Akalis and the BJP need each other. So that is why after the farm agitation, you know, the farm laws have been taken back. There's no real issue of rift between both the sides. So if these sides come together, they would be able to form a strong opposition to the Congress and the AAP challenge in Punjab. That is the whole calculation, to win seats, more seats in Punjab, win more seats in Andhra, get a foothold also in West UP, and ensure nothing is left to chance in UP as well.
And that's how they will do 400 ke par. That's what the BJP has said. Let's see how many of these alliances are actually stitched together and how successful they are in doing it before the elections. Listen to some more voices and reactions on this story.
देखिए, ये चुनावी वर्ष है और सारी पार्टियां हमें ऑफर कर रही हैं, क्योंकि हमारा एक राजनीतिक वजूद है, हमारे 9 विधायक हैं, तो निश्चित रूप से बहुत सारी पार्टी हमसे गठबंधन के लिए आतुर हैं, तो बातचीत चल रही है। वो कौन होते हैं इस बात को कहने वाले कि क्योंकि ये तो हमारी पार्टी का अपना वजूद है, हमारा राष्ट्रीय नेतृत्व कहेगा कि हम किसके साथ हैं। भाजपा के लोगों के द्वारा तो पिछली बार भी ऑफर किया गया था, इस बार भी किया गया है, लेकिन वो 4 सीट की बात कर रहे हैं, लेकिन हमने 12 लोकसभा सीटों पर तैयारी की है। तो इस बात का निर्णय तो हम लेंगे कि हम किसके साथ गठबंधन में चुनाव लड़ेंगे। जो हमारा वजूद है और जिनके लिए हमने संघर्ष किया है, चाहे वो कामगार लोग हों, चाहे जो हमारे युवा लोग हैं, हमारे जो बेरोजगारी एक बहुत बड़ा मुद्दा है, तो ऐसे बहुत सारे मुद्दे हैं जिनको लेकर हमने अपना पार्टी का जो घोषणा पत्र जारी किया था, और जो भी हमारी उन मांगों पर सहमत होगा हम उनके साथ चुनाव में इस बार लड़ेंगे।
जयंत चौधरी जी बहुत सुलझे हुए इंसान हैं, बहुत पढ़े लिखे हैं, राजनीति को वो समझते हैं। मुझे उम्मीद है कि किसानों की लड़ाई और उत्तर प्रदेश की खुशहाली की तरफ जो संघर्ष चल रहा है, उस लड़ाई को वो कमजोर नहीं होने देंगे।
मेरा मानना है कि आरएलडी पार्टी ने हमेशा किसानों का साथ दिया है और किसानों की आवाज़ बहुत मजबूत करी है, पार्लियामेंट में, संसद के अंदर भी और बाहर भी। और जिस तरह भाजपा सरकार लगातार किसानों के विरुद्ध काम कर रही है, इस बार आपने बजट में भी देखा कि कोई भी एमएसपी का जिक्र नहीं है, और किस तरह हमारी रेसलर जो बहनें थी उनका अपमान हुआ है भाजपा सरकार द्वारा। तो मैं नहीं मानती कि जो आरएलडी के जो मौजूदा जो नेता हैं जयंत चौधरी जी, जो राज्यसभा मेंबर भी हैं, वो इस तरह का कोई कदम उठाएंगे जिससे सीधे किसानों को क्षति पहुंचे।
लगातार राष्ट्रीय मीडिया पर राष्ट्रीय लोकदल के भारतीय जनता पार्टी से गठबंधन पर खबर चल रही है। ऐसी खबरें पूरी तरह बेबुनियाद हैं। भारतीय जनता पार्टी के खिलाफ जिन मुद्दों पर राष्ट्रीय लोकदल लगातार संघर्षरत रहा है, चाहे वो किसान आंदोलन के स्थगन के दौरान जिन बातों पर सहमति बनी, उन बातों में से एक बात पर सरकार ने चर्चा नहीं की। एमएसपी जैसे महत्वपूर्ण मुद्दे पर आज तक कोई चर्चा नहीं हुई।
Well, here's another important story. Following the arrest of Hemant Soren, a new connection between Congress and JMM has emerged. In December, now the Income Tax Department had made certain recoveries which have proved to be very, very crucial and important. The IT department seized a record-breaking of about 352 crore rupees during the raids which happened on Odisha-based distillery. Now, they have been linked to the family of a Congress legislator. ED has also summoned the Congress MP Dheeraj Prasad Sahu from Jharkhand on the 10th of February for further questioning. That's the another high-profile investigation that we're looking at. Listen into some reactions and voices on this.
यह अब इनका एक नया हथियार आ गया, ईडी। अभी तक इस देश के अंदर यह कानून होता था कि अगर आपने कोई क्राइम किया तो उसकी जांच होती थी, फिर उसमें मुकदमा चलता था। मुकदमे में तय होता था कि कौन कौन दोषी है, कौन कौन निर्दोष है। जो दोषी है उसको सजा मिलती थी, वो जेल जाता था। मुकदमे के बाद अभी हेमंत सोरेन साहब को इन्होंने जेल में डाल दिया। अभी तक उनके ऊपर कुछ भी साबित नहीं हुआ है। कल मुझे पकड़ के जेल में डाल देंगे, विजयन साहब को पकड़ के जेल में डाल देंगे, स्टेलिन साहब को पकड़ के जेल में डाल देंगे, सीतारमैया साहब को पकड़ के जेल में डाल देंगे, सुखविंदर जी को।
ये इंडी अलायंस है कि दीमक अलायंस है, भ्रष्टाचारी अलायंस है। ये कांग्रेस के राज्यसभा के सांसद 352 करोड़ रुपया, अलमारियों की अलमारियां भरी हुई थी नगद। आईटी ने 352 करोड़ रुपया जब्त किया था। ना मल्लिकार्जुन खड़गे जी एक शब्द बोले थे, ना सोनिया गांधी जी एक शब्द बोली थी, ना राहुल गांधी जी एक शब्द बोले थे।
Right, as we close this edition of The Nation at 5, leaving you with a special conversation, my colleague Vinaya Deshpande spoke to Praful Patel. And this is about the decision of the Election Commission to recognize who exactly is the real NCP, and that went in the favor of Ajit Pawar, as we know. Listen in to this conversation.
If you could tell us what significance does this order have and what is your reaction to it?
Well, I expressed satisfaction at the order passed by the Election Commission of India yesterday in the NCP matter. And lot is being read into the name which has been given to the other side. It is very surprising. The last paragraph of the judgment is very clear, where it says that the Rajya Sabha election is round the corner. The notification is coming on the 8th, and that's why they said that by 4 p.m. today, just give a name so that we can identify and give a separate identity to the MLAs who are with Pawar Saab, so that their voting for Rajya Sabha can be considered as a block, and therefore their whip for those MLAs can be, shown the votes before they are cast. Now, otherwise, in the absence of that process not being completed, they will be treated as independents, and then they can vote for whoever. They don't have to show their vote to anybody. So this order is only applicable in a hurry for the Rajya Sabha election. After the Rajya Sabha elections are over, there will be a fresh process of asking for the name and symbol, and let us see then what happens.
Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. We often lament that matters like economy are not talked about enough when it comes to politics in India. Media is often blamed for not focusing on the issues that matter. Now, I won't get into whether that lament is fair, but certainly right now, ahead of 2024 elections, there can be no criticism on both of these counts. Interestingly, it is the government of the day itself that is pushing its economic agenda into prime time. The Modi government had announced its intention of releasing a white paper on its handling of the economy, not just for the last 5 years, but all of 10 years, and reiterated that during this year's budget. They particularly want to compare it with the previous 10 years of the UPA. Now, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has released this 54-page document just a short while ago. Long story